Hey everyone, I'm over here with Sifu Thommy Luke Boehlig in Langenfeld, Germany, and I was very happy and honored to be here, a guest in his school, and get a chance to see, to meet his students and see a bit how, or get an insight on the way he trains, on the way he runs his school. And I thought it would be a great opportunity to sit down and talk to him a bit about the differences in Wing Chun styles, a bit about Latso Chichung, Lolao Hoisung, and we'll see whatever else we can come up with during the actual conversations.
Okay, sounds good.
So Sifu Thommy, thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for being a part of this interview.
Thanks a lot for having me. Hey everyone. Yeah, we'd like to talk a little bit about the similarities and also the differences within the Wing Chun styles. I'm sure that if you train in a certain style and you like YouTube, that you couldn't help but notice that there are vast differences in the way that people move and in the way that the Wing Chun is being perceived. Okay, so I guess one of the main reasons is that we have a common denominator that is the sentence of Loi Lao Hoi Sung La Tsao Chik Chung, which to many non-Chinese speakers this may just sound very Chinese, which it obviously is.
What does that exactly mean? Because I know, like, if you speak Cantonese, then Wing Chun has a totally different meaning for you.
Or at least a different depth, because contrary to many other styles in Wing Chun, the words explain exactly what you have to do with the technique. For example, Toksao is a raising hand, so this could never be a Toksao. Or if you talk about a Tansao, a palm up hand, then this would clearly not be a Tansao, this would be. So it does make a lot of sense to understand or to know the words because they explain the technique in the way that you want to carry it out.
I've heard that in so many ways and from so many people. It's true. It's true. So you guys who speak Cantonese, you're actually very lucky and blessed.
Oh yeah, that's very true. So when it comes to Loi Lao Hoi Sung La Tsao Jik Chung, Loi Lao is something that comes, well, it means coming, staying, so something that comes has to be stopped some way. And I can do this by applying a lot of force in order to make it stop, or I could do it by letting it go its way and just guiding it, or I could do it by letting it end up in a lever or in an arm break, for example, if that's a punch that we're talking about. So if you look at a certain interpretation, then you're going to give it that meaning. In other words, if you're a strong guy, for example, then it may be very well suitable for you to use your own force in order to bring your arms up at a certain angle that makes it difficult for the partner to come through. Yet, the way that I look at Wing Chun is that I always want to make sure that somebody who only weighs, I don't know, 50 kilos or so, has to be able to apply it against a guy that weighs 100 kilos.
So in that case, they need to deviate the force.
Yes, exactly. They have to be much softer, they have to use circles much more, and that's the way that I teach, for example. But this, if we only look at this, well, the next part of it would be Loi Lao Hoi Sung La Tsao Jik Chung. La Tsao just means the hand is free, and Jik Chung thrust forward. Now, if we look at the way that German or European masters translated this Chinese saying, then they actually divided it into four phrases. The first one was, if the way is clear, go forward, which means if you encounter somebody and he stands like this, then obviously you're not going to grab his arm and walk around him, but you're just going to hit his face or his groin. The second one is if you encounter resistance, stick. So you try to punch him, but he blocks the whole thing. So the last thing you want to do then is withdraw your arm, because obviously he can follow you and hit you then. So you stick with him, which is where Chiso comes into play. Then the third sentence would be if the opponent's force is too great, yield. Yeah, don't resist, but the second you feel that he's coming in, his force is superior than yours, and you just yield, give way. And the fourth one is if the partner retreats, follow him. So this may be one way of how you can lay down this concept. But since it's a Chinese saying, it gives much more opportunities, much more freedom for interpretations.
Yes. I think it's a double-edged sword, because in one phrase you can say so much, but at the same time you can also lose the meaning of the phrase.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? If you're not really into it, or you don't know exactly what it's meant to do.
And it's also interpretatory. That's where I'm going at. So this could be just as correct as this when it comes to the sentence, when it comes to the meaning of the sentence. It really comes down to the interpretation of the Wing Chun practitioner. So there has to be somebody who has a certain standard, and it depends on the standard that this person, that the practitioner has, or maybe a maturity of his understanding of Wing Chun. Somebody who's still very young and very strong, may have a different favorite technique than somebody who's older, who's a bit more senior, and who maybe is also a little bit weaker. So they may favor other techniques.
Absolutely. And I've heard this saying many times that the older you get, your Wing Chun becomes better. Because you have to go a bit deeper and you have to improve your feeling. You cannot just rely on brute force. Yeah,
that's true. I mean, our program or our system has never been about that. Obviously, you know, it is an interest. It's an intelligent system. So therefore, we should also make use of the intelligence of the techniques that we use. So,
can you tell us a bit more about the BDS program and the BDS system?
Sure. So BDS stands for Boehlig Defense System. Boehlig is my last name. And we don't just teach Wing Chun. This is our adults branch. And we also have a kids program, BDS Kung Fu. We have a violence prevention program, and we have a law enforcement and fitness program that we have. And all of this is under the umbrella organization of BDS. So the idea is that I wanted to create an environment for people who say, well, I'm a Wing Chun practitioner, I like doing this, and I would like to earn some money with it, so I'd like to build a little business around that. They can do that. They can just go about, open a school and teach the Wing Chun program for adults and for youth. But also for people who say, no, I really want to build my future with this thing, that they actually have a chance in the mornings to go and hold violence prevention courses at universities, at schools, at kindergartens, at fire departments, at companies, and therefore create prospective students for the afternoon classes, which is the kids classes, or the evening classes, which would be the Wing Chun classes. And since I've been working with police units for a very long time, it was only natural for me that since I've been working in this field for such a long time, to develop a program that's specifically targeted for law enforcement officers, and that's what tactical is. Now, the last branch that we have, the combat fitness, is I was looking for a fitness program to complement the needs of a Wing Chun practitioner. And if you look at our needs, for example, as people who like to punch, we need a so-called open kinematic chain, which means that we need to be able to, for example, generate force through the ground and into the opponent's face. Whereas a judo person, for example, who is in constant contact with the opponent, needs a closed kinematic chain. So it's a different need that he has when it comes to a fitness program. So I sat down with a few fitness performance specialists, and we came up with a program that's based on high-intensity interval training, which allows you to lose weight and grow muscle, and also focus on the things that a Wing Chun person needs to be strong in. Like we need a latissimus for grab, for neck pulling movements. We need our tricep to work for punches. We need fast footwork in order to be able to kick and to have efficient kicking and stepping techniques as well. So that's pretty much how we're structured.
Awesome. That sounds really, really good. And I love this because, you know, we were speaking about it the other day. When I was in high school, I really, really loved martial arts, but my mentality back then was like, I could never teach martial arts because I would starve, right? At least that was like the mentality where I was from, right? Where I was living back then. And I see that you can do so much with martial arts today, right? And you probably could have done it in the past as well. How do you get out of that mentality that most people are, you know, where they associate teaching martial arts with just having like, you know, barely making ends meet, or having it as a hobby? How do you turn it into a profession?
Well, I think most people are good technicians. By that I mean they're good to do a tanda or ganda or something like that. They're a very good fighter. Maybe also a very good teacher, but they're either not interested in the business side of things, or they don't know that there is a business side to becoming a major player in the martial arts industry. And you really have to look at it as an industry if we're talking about building a profession around this thing. So the first thing is the mindset
Yeah.
of really being able to, or being interested in making a living with that. And then there are certain organizations, if you browse the web, there is a big industry of martial arts business coaches out there who are more than willing to help you. A lot of them are also more than willing to take a lot of money from you, so you're gonna want to evaluate which one you go with.
Yeah.
But first of all, be aware that what you teach is worth a lot of money. Especially when we talk about Wing Chun, this is a program that can change your life. And it can make your life much safer. It creates self-confidence in you and in your students, and that's something that is worth charging money for.
Yeah.
It has to be in certain limits, of course, but it's very, very, very possible to do that.
And one of the things that I personally hate when talking to people is that say, oh, like some people say, oh, you're doing this just for business, and like there's nothing wrong with having a business if you're doing something valuable.
I was just gonna say the value has to be there. That's the main thing, obviously.
What
Yes.
are you talking about?
Yeah,
right?
yeah. People are still scared of that, which is something I don't understand either. You're providing a business, you're providing a service for your community, something that is really valuable because it can make the lives of so many people better. It enhances the fitness, it improves the fitness, it improves so many things in the student's life. And you are constantly striving to become better at this, and you take your own classes and your instructor charges you for them. So I think it's completely fair to actually charge your students for that. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking about it the other day. You have that 16-year-old kid who's depressed and who has like a very difficult situation at home. He comes for training and he suddenly stops thinking about killing himself because
Exactly.
he finds community, he finds hope, he finds support, and that's not something you can actually pay for.
Yeah, that's true. I agree.
Right? So if you guys are teaching or you're considering teaching, really see what you're doing for what it's really worth. Not what people say it's worth, right? Or like people charging 15 euros a month.
See, these are the things that we're competing with. Here in Germany, I charge about between 80 and 100 euros per month for martial arts classes. And we compete with organizations, with judo clubs, karate clubs, that charge 15 euros, which is a huge difference. Yet if you come to my school, you see that it's a professionally run school. You see that the guys who work here, they're actually highly trained professionals. All of them are fitness trainers. All of them have done a minimum of 3 to 5 years of training with me before they actually were considered to become Wing Chun instructors. They all work full-time in this school. And for these things, obviously, you also should be able to charge a higher price.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Let's go back a bit to Latzo Chichung and Lodao. How do you see people using these concepts generally in Wing Chun? Like, what do you feel are the differences? Oh, and by the way, guys, I had a chance to do some Chizao yesterday with Sifu Thommy, and I really loved his hands, and his Latzo is amazing. Right?
Thank you.
So I really enjoyed that part a lot yesterday. So what do you feel are like the differences, and what insights could you give to further optimize Latzo and Lodao?
Well, first of all, to me, Chisao and Latzo is not two different things. I do understand that Chisao is not a fight, but it's a vehicle that should improve your fighting skills. So therefore, to me, the way that I understand Chisao is that not even the smallest single technique that we have in Chisao does not have an application. Everything you do in Chisao, you should be able to adapt to a combat situation, and that's the way that I teach. So usually when we go into Chisao drills, then I have the students play those in Chisao, and afterwards I explain immediately the application as how it relates to a combat situation, and have them do that for a while. And that's something that I have not seen many schools do. There's a lot of schools who have a lot of different drills and they have no idea of how to apply these things. Yeah, and that's something that's, I think, is very important and very valuable. Especially in our way of training Chisao, we have something that we call sections, which is, they're actually two-man forms. So it's a choreography. Partner 1 begins with attack number 1, partner 2 defense with defense number 1, and then he comes in with a counter, and so on. And they're very, very long sequences sometimes. And there are people who say it's more important to just have a handful of techniques and to practice those in order to get very efficient in those. But the way that I look at it is that I think the more you have, the more options you have later. And if you drill them, if you train those techniques over and over, if you train those sections over and over, then you also feed your body with the impulses that it needs in order to learn how to respond to these given situations. So we isolate the movements in these sections obviously as well in an application format, but also in an isolated Shiso drill. But just to make sure that you don't forget about any of them, we have put them into those sections so that you can always, you have a red line that you can go back to. If you forgot a certain drill, you go back to the section and there you have it. So it's a nice help. But that also makes it a lot of material, obviously, so a lot of stuff that you get to practice, which I think is a good thing.
It's awesome, yeah. I got a chance to see a bit, to have some insights on your system. And I love the fact that it's very, very structured and very clear. Your students know at any given time where they are, what's the next step.
Yeah, that's the idea. Mm-hmm.
What they have to do actually.
Right.
Yeah, which a lot of people don't have, including myself, and I'm working with that for my school. Not because I like it, because that's like having structure and bringing some discipline is something that I personally hate, but I see that my students need it.
They need it, yes,
right?
Definitely.
So I have to do it. Yeah, absolutely. And that's a tip, guys. It's good to have like a good structure for your classes so that people know what they have to do, what they're learning, and how karate is excellent in this sense.
Well, they've been around for a long time. They've been running professional schools for a long time. I think it's important that we do that as well. I mean, we even have grading sheets. We have student grades and we have instructor grades, and each of these student grades has a grading sheet, a grading preparation sheet. So each time the student comes into the class, I see that he's there, I see Joe is there, so I take out Joe's grading sheet and I put it on the counter over there. And while we're having our class, I can see exactly what Joe still has to do. And when I can see that he's sufficiently prepared in, I don't know, chain punches, for example, then I tick off the topic of chain punches and we carry on with the next thing. So if Joe should ever attend a class where I'm not present but another instructor is here, then the instructor takes a look at the grading sheet, and by the amount of signatures that are on Joe's sheet, he knows exactly what he doesn't have to repeat anymore because he has been sufficiently prepared for that, and he's going to train on the other program points that are still there. And then at the end, when Joe is done with his sheet, he receives the signature and he's good to go for a grading. I know that a lot of you guys don't believe in examinations and stuff like that, but if you want to run a professional school and you want to have a professional structure in it, in order to have your students advance in a structured way, then that's one of the ways of how you can do it. I'm not saying it's the only way.
It's good. I would personally, take one of my sheets and just sign all of them.
Okay.
And mark all of them until I get my black belt.
Oh, all right.
That probably wouldn't work. But
no. So you guys actually have a black belt?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, good. All right. Yeah, it's interesting.
It's funny because when I learned Wing Chun, we were actually making fun of this idea of having belts, right?
Yeah.
And what do you need a belt for to tie your pants?
That's what Bruce Lee used to say.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
But this whole, Bruce Lee was somebody who didn't have to live from his Wing Chun classes,
True.
But if you're a professional martial arts teacher and that's all you do, then your students will hold you accountable on this stuff. Oh, Sifu, you didn't teach me this and that and that and this. Oh yeah, that's right, I forgot. Why? Because it's not in the curriculum. Why? Because we don't have a curriculum. At least we don't have it written down. So I think it's important to have something like that in writing.
And I think a lot of people actually learn that way Wing Chun, without having a graded system or
but they're bound to lose so much stuff. I've been in the scene for 26 years and I train on a daily basis. Most Sundays I don't train, but apart from that, pretty much every day, many hours. And I've been through so much material. If I wouldn't have at some point started taking notes and putting stuff down, my goodness, 70% of what I've got to learn, or maybe 80% would be out of the window by now.
Absolutely. Guys, you need systems.
Yeah.
You need systems. That's something that I learned from my from teachers that I had outside of martial arts, regarding running a school, building a community. You need systems. You need to, you do something, okay, make a system out of it. Did you make coffee today? Okay, make a list and write down the steps of making coffee. Now somebody else can make coffee.
Right. And I think this is what it comes down to. Wing Chun is the biggest treasure that has ever been given to me. It has enriched my life in so many ways, and not just my life, but also the life of so many of my students. I keep receiving I train soldiers, I train police officers who actually go out and they get to apply what I do here with them. And I get reports from how they survived a war, how they got out of a touchy situation. And this is something that can benefit so many people. And frankly, the more people I can reach with Wing Chun and therefore better their lives, the better it is. So I think it's really valuable to bring everything into a teachable format and then spread it so that the community can grow and that more people get exposed to this wonderful system, which can be life-changing.
Awesome. Okay, guys, I actually interviewed Sifu Thommy for the Wing Chun podcast. We dove into how he started out and his whole journey to becoming and building this awesome organization. I'll post a link in the description of this video. You can listen to it. And if you have any more questions that you feel that we could answer, just type a comment below. Send them to Sifu Thommy.
Get in touch with me on Facebook if you like. I'm sure you're going to find a profile that's still open. I have 3 or 4 profiles, but I'm sure you're going to be able to get one. Oh yeah, we also, on the podcast, we also spoke about kids training, which is another topic that a lot of Wing Chun practitioners hate to learn about. But check it out, it may change your mind about that.
Absolutely. When we spoke of this before, I think this was the 4th episode of the Wing Chun podcast, and I think it was somewhere in February that we did it, right? And we were talking about the Wing Chun for kids, and I was like, no, I'm not going to teach kids. Like, come on, the Wing Chun is not for kids. It's true, right?
It's true. I totally agree. Right. But we're not going to tell you more about that now. Listen to the podcast.
Yeah. All I can say is that, my students actually asked me to start teaching kids, and our conversation was a huge influence. And I did, and I created a class where kids and parents are coming together and they're training together. And I tell you, it's one of the best things that I ever did. I'm so grateful for that.
Nice. Awesome. Love hearing that. Thank you, brother.
Thank you so much for your time and for the invitation.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here.
Awesome. You guys connect with Sifu Thommy, and I'll see you guys next time.